Good afternoon, everyone. So welcome back for the online part of the Think Big conference. So thank you all for still being with us. It has been a really great morning that will now be complemented with a fantastic panel on open innovation and sustainable development. Hearing some audio, just take a second. Okay, awesome, thank you. So let me now just inform you that the voting for the Amirish Innovation Big Impact Award has just been closed. So the votes will be now counted, and the winners, as you know, will be announced after this panel discussion. And for this panel, we have with us key executives such as John Mello, Amirish CEO. We have David Hartman, Antonio Vasconcelos, together with Professor Manuela Pintado from our school that will be moderating the session. So before giving the floor to John, I will briefly introduce all the panel members. So we have with us David. David is in Shanghai, so for David is 8 hours above Portugal time. So David, good evening to you. So David is CEO and co-founder of Ilio Additive, helping manufacturing companies make the jump to series production with 3D printing. And previously, he spent 16 years working in the chemical industry, both in Europe and Asia, and acted most recently as the Senior Vice President Growth Ventures at Covestro. Together with David, we have also Antonio Vasconcelos, which is a management director at New Next, the co-leader of Planeteer's New Generation, and also the coordinator at the International Board of the Natural Step, which is a pioneer effort with almost 30 years of experience in supporting progressive leaders to integrate business development with the pursuit of full sustainability. And finally, our keynote speaker, John Mello, Amirish CEO. So Amirish, for all of you who are yet not informed, Amirish is a world leader in industrial biotechnology applications, working to reduce the cost of healing malaria and the carbon low production, and the second generation of biofuels. John previously was the president of US ABP Fuels, where he led major oil marketing, logistics, and trade business, with past experience also in Ernst & Young. So good morning, good afternoon, good morning to John, actually, because he's also in a different time zone, and good afternoon to the remaining of you. John, please, the stage is yours. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Hugo, and great morning to everyone. I'm actually coming to you from Sao Paulo this morning. It's usually San Francisco, but today it's Sao Paulo. And I only wish I could be there physically. It's incredible that we've learned how to do large-scale conferences and engage and interact with people around the world. If anything, in one way, it's more exciting. You can bring people that otherwise wouldn't be there. And another way, I miss the human connection. And especially when it comes to innovation, it's pretty hard to innovate when you're not connecting with people and getting minds to work together. But here we are. I think I have a presentation that's going to be shared. And then I'll make my comments around the presentation.
Just a second. Here you go. Can you see?
I can. Thank you. And this is what, almost a year or so after I met you and you asked me to participate. And it wasn't, I think you remember, it didn't take me a long time. Once you told me this was about open innovation and about sustainability and how we make our planet healthier. And for me, any opportunity we have to help advance the health of our planet, I'm very engaged. And if it includes innovation, it's even more fun. So thanks again for having me. I want to share with you a little bit about Amyris and share with you some of the innovation and open innovation that we participate in inside Amyris. Not that I want to do a commercial for Amyris. I think my objective is more to share some learnings about how we innovate and the impact we can have. Let's turn the slide, please. So we at Amyris are really focused on a single purpose. We like to say we make good with no compromise. By make good, we really are talking about making better chemistry for our planet, sustainable chemistry that performs better than the alternative and is sustainably sourced. The no compromise message is really a simple one. I've personally been working around sustainability for over 30 years. And one of my early lessons is consumers say they want to do the right thing by our planet, but they rarely want to pay more for products that are sustainably sourced. And they don't want to give up the performance of products that they're used to in their lives. So when we say make good, we mean make sustainable chemistry that's better for our planet. When we say no compromise, we mean deliver that chemistry in a way that it performs better, costs less, and is more sustainable than any other source of that chemistry on our planet. That's make good, no compromise. That is our purpose. And it's all in service of accelerating the world's transition to sustainable consumption. We believe that every consumer, every one of you is a consumer first. And if I can get you to consume products that are sustainably sourced, that are sustainably made from either the circular economy, waste streams that we can turn into products, or from fermentation, taking low footprint carbon sources and upgrading the chemistry to products that are good for you and your life, then that's a win-win for everybody. So that's our purpose. Let's turn the slide, please. There are three specific components to our business. The first is lab to market, meaning we actually take chemistry from an idea all the way to bioengineering a yeast strain, scaling that yeast strain, going into a large fermentation tank that takes sugarcane syrup and converts it into the target chemistry, purifying that chemistry and delivering it to the end market, which could be a consumer or one of our partners. That's lab to market. We have the second part of our business, which is the ingredients pipeline or the ingredients business, where we develop ingredients for some of the world's leading companies. We're one of the world's largest producers of vanillin. We make patchouli oil. We're one of the largest, or our technology is the largest producer of vitamin E in the world. We make amazing products for the cosmetics industry. We make amazing products for fragrances. That's the ingredients pipeline. And in our latest evolution as a company, our latest big innovation is actually a partnership in Portugal with Católica in Porto for a biotechnology hub that's taking the waste streams of our process and other processes, profiling the chemistry in the waste stream, identifying very interesting markets, and then developing the technology to enable it to be successful in the market and then taking it to market. That's a project that we're very proud of. We already have one breakthrough product that is going commercial, and we have several more in the pipeline that's come out of that work, and we're excited to expand our relationship with Católica in Porto, with likely doubling the size of that project. Today, we have around 70 to 80 researchers doing amazing work in Porto, and I expect to double that over the next year. And it's probably one of the greatest examples I've participated in of open innovation. I'll cover that in a little while. And then last but not least, consumer brands. I believe when you're trying to move the world, it is very hard to get established, mature companies to do things that are right at the speed that needs to be done to have real impact on our planet. So we decided as a company to create winning consumer brands and then sell our sustainable ingredients through product formulations directly to the end consumer. And that's the third part of our business. So lab to market, ingredients, and consumer brands. That's what we do at Amyris, all in service of making the planet more sustainable by delivering better products from sustainable chemistry that deliver better performance for the consumer. So as they choose better performance, they're choosing to make our planet healthier. Next slide, please. We have a proprietary platform from the technology that does this. In a way, we invented synthetic biology as it's known today. When I started in the business about 15 years ago, as one of the founding leaders of Amyris, at that time, a lot of what we did in bioengineering was done manually. It was a scientist with a pipette actually on a tray, putting in what they thought were the right proteins to create a DNA string that then would give us the right outcome from a yeast. It was very slow, very labor intensive. We didn't engineer effectively, or said differently, correctly most of the time, around half the time. And that ended up with a lot of duplication and work. Today, we're engineering a new yeast strain about every couple of minutes. And so the speed at which we do things and the impact at which we do, 15 years ago, it took us 4 to 5 years to engineer a specific chemistry. Today, we can take a molecule and engineer it, scale it, and produce it at industrial levels for commercial markets in less than 1 year. And in our latest projects, we've been able to do the strain engineering to deliver an effective strain in around 3 months. And I can tell you that not only did we industrialize the industry or the technology of synthetic biology, the other thing we've done is we achieved that through a tremendous amount of open innovation by collaborating with some of the world's biggest thinkers around synthetic biology, around bioengineering, around biochemistry, gaining insights, gaining learnings to design and evolve our process to improve it. We've done it with some of our commercial partners, and we've done it with a lot of people around the world. Next slide, please. I think this is a simple diagram of what we do. We take yeast, we add sugarcane syrup, we ferment, we make pure ingredients, and we're the best in the world at doing this. And we developed a lot of these processes, again, through open innovation and partnership, like the amazing partnership we have at Cattolica. Next slide, please. So if you think about open innovation for me is what you do when the problem is so big and important, and the answer is beyond your own walls. Your own walls, by the way, could be your own mind, could be the company you're with, could be the university lab you're at. And I always think about innovation and collaboration being done very tightly together. So once we have a problem that's big enough, we don't have the answer ourselves, we immediately ask ourselves, what are like industries or like problems that others have driven amazing results through? And let's talk to them about how they can help. And then we bring them together in a collaboration, and then we work together as a team. Collaborations are effective when there are no egos involved. Collaborations are effective when there is a trusted environment for IP. Collaboration is effective when there's a specific target in mind. And then when those conditions exist, you can actually have open innovation work at scale. And that is what's really helped build our company. Next slide, please. These are the 13 ingredients we've commercialized. We are the #1 producer in the world of most of these ingredients, including the first one, which is artemisinin, which is actually a key chemical intermediate that makes the world's leading anti-malaria cure. That all the way to squalane, which is the best emollient or moisturizer somebody can use on their skin. And the emollient is saving 3 million sharks a year. And the artemisinin is saving 1 million children a year by us making something rare, abundant in the world at a cost that makes it accessible to mothers in sub-Saharan Africa that otherwise couldn't afford a treatment for their children. Next slide, please. as I said earlier, one of the other parts of our business, the third leg of our business, is consumer brands. We now have 9 brands in our portfolio. We have 6 of these brands as leaders in their end market. And I think about our brands as a great example of open innovation, where we partner with a very influential person to build a brand. And that influential person enables the brand to scale faster. It enables us to be a more effective builder of the brand, as well as a faster reach to the consumer. Our brands are everything from the most successful and fastest growing skincare brand in North America, Biossance, to a brand we just launched that is now on track to be one of the top 10 color cosmetic brands in the world, and that's Rose Inc. And what's common to all of these brands is they're all focused on clean beauty, meaning sustainable chemistry that delivers better performance to the consumer with formulations that are unique to us from a team of amazing chemists that are focused on formulating products to make the consumer have a healthier skin, a healthier gut, while making our planet more sustainable. Next slide, please. A great example of one of the ingredients that we build our business around is this ingredient called CBG, cannabigerol. It's actually an amazing ingredient that comes from the cannabis plant, but it's very rare in the cannabis plant, and it's very hard to purify. And when you purify, it's very hard to get out all the THC, which actually makes it a product that then is not really marketable across geographies and across markets. Our approach to this product was to actually make the best CBG in the world at the lowest cost, and then identify what CBG can do in the world that nothing else can. What we found was CBG is the best anti-inflammatory product we have found, and it actually delivers the best efficacy in the world at treating acne as well as other skin inflammations when formulated with squalane, another ingredient we make. All of this that I'm explaining to you, the development of CBG, the formulation with squalane, the ability to focus something called acne and deliver the best product in the world to cure acne, for me, are perfect examples of how we innovate. It's continuous innovation. For this to happen at Amyris, we have to embrace risk. We have to accept that a lot of our ideas will not work, but it's not about it working or not working. It's about learning. So we embrace risk for the purpose of learning. And we're very focused on fast failure. We want to identify what to do. We want to identify great ways to do it. We want to do it. We want to either fail or succeed. Most of the time we fail. We want to take the learnings, and then we want to iterate to do it again. That is at the core of innovation. That is at the core of how to actually develop breakthrough solutions. It's why it's so exciting to be part of the Big Impact Conference today. Next, please. This is an example of one of our latest brands. It's JVN Hair. We invented new chemistry for this brand. We invented a molecule called hemisqualane. It's an ingredient that enables us to remove silicones from all hair care products while making the hair care products much more effective than anything that's in the market today for hair. And we do that by having invented this chemistry that actually treats the hair differently. Instead of trying to glue actives to the hair like a silicone would do, we go to the base, we actually go through the bottom of the shaft of the hair into the hair to treat the hair. Another amazing innovation that's delivering a breakthrough solution for consumers. Next, please. I think to summarize, what I would say is we are delivering on the promise of synthetic biology. Synthetic biology is all about being able to make the lowest cost, sustainable chemistry on the planet. I believe most things in the world will be made by synthetic biology as we continue to evolve our way around using what I call high intensity carbon sources of chemistry. And we are very well on our way to making our world more sustainable. We're delivering some of the highest growth of any company in synthetic biology today on the planet. We're investing strong in our future because we believe investing in technology and innovation is how you own and control the future. That's how you create the future. And we have a very long-term approach to how we actually deliver results for our shareholders. And again, at the heart of all this is open innovation, how we innovate and collaborate with partners to come up with breakthrough ideas. Next slide, please. Fantastic. We're at Q&A. I hope I didn't overwhelm you in the afternoon after lunch. I have the advantage of being morning in São Paulo, so I can be high energy while you're dealing with low energy after lunchtime. Hugo, very nice to continue to the Q&A panel.
Yes, please. So I'll invite to join you now, Professor Manuela, Antonio, and David. Please feel free.
Okay. Hello. Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So it's a great honor to be here today. I think it's combining and integrating and supporting in this alumni meeting. It's in fact an honor for me because in fact Biotech School has been working to connect the industry and the science, and of course the alumni has been a very important help to us. So in fact I want to thank also the alumni for this great event. And of course, I want to thank, first of all, to John for the great presentation. And I think it's a very stimulating presentation for our debate or our roundtable today. And I want also to welcome David and Antonio. That is a great pleasure. And I think it's amazing how we can connect the world. São Paulo, China, in Portugal. So I think it's amazing how sustainability is throughout the world, is global. And I think during this roundtable, we'll be discussing this important role of open innovation in sustainable development. So the time is short, so I would start with David. Have been your work in biopolymers and 3D has been in fact an amazing work related to make a more sustainable world. So I would start, David, asking you, what do you think about this open and sustainable innovation? Just to start and frame how you've been working in this area and how open and sustainable is for you.
Thank you very much for the question. And yeah, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak here. Thank you, Hugo and Antonio as well. John, that was a really great presentation. I really enjoyed it. Look, I think sustainability and open innovation come for me with a lot of kind of buzzwords. We're in the middle of a great extinction period. We are facing climate change. I have 2 kids, and for those of you who have children out there, I worry very, very much about the kind of world that our children will inherit. I'm very sympathetic to the kind of statements that Greta makes to world leaders. And I think if we embrace with full commitment ideas like open innovation and combine them then with digitalization and sustainability, that's a great thing. But I feel that very often these words are co-opted by, let's say, conflicts of interest, I think conflicts of interest is a good term. So I think when we're engaged in these areas, I think it's up to all of us to ask ourselves, where do we not have skin in the game, or where are we somehow biased in a way that we're following our own interests ahead of what makes sense for the planet or what makes sense for the communities around us.
Yeah, but your topic about this conflict of interest, do you think during your activities with startups, and do you think that is that possible? So can we be separating and trying to make this planet better, even integrating our interest of business?
I think we can, but you just have to look at, let's say, medical clinical data, right? Where how often in academic research what you want to find in a study defines your statistics, defines your design of experiment. Who's paying for the study defines the outcome, right? And I think when we're building startups, of course, we all want to build billion-dollar startups. We all want to build unicorns. That's the hero myth of the world that we live in today. And realistically, when reality gets in the way of that, it's up to us as ethical individuals to decide which way do we choose. We see in the press at the moment the Theranos trial, very big, and I don't want to comment on the ethics there one way or the other. But when I hear about some of those statements from what's coming out of that trial, it's very easy to hear buzzwords that startup CEOs and founders are exposed to and driven to make claims about their products that are maybe different from the current reality. They are hopeful that their scientists and their engineers are going to develop them, right? So I think I don't want to be negative about it. I actually feel very positive about it. But if you ask me, is there a conflict of interest? There definitely is. And whenever we have to stay aware of it. And we're tempted constantly, both in the corporate world, in the startup world, and in the academic world. And humans, when tempted, often fall. And we need to stay aware of that.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe now I move to Antonio. Antonio, you have been working a lot in this holistic analysis of sustainability. You have been analyzing all the value chains using a systemic analysis. Can you explain us this concept and how open innovation can be incorporated and promoting this new systemic analysis in sustainability and regeneration?
Thank you, Manuela, and good afternoon to our colleagues of panel and everyone. Big words to John for the amazing presentation. I was a business strategy person once working for a US multinational in 2010. I realized that I was receiving a briefing for a project that was not an announcement for the outside about having to adhere to incorporate some filters in the business scans into new categories of products. A big multinational, very, very large multinational of consumer products. Acquisitions in Iberia, it was the topic. And the products, surprisingly, the products were quite what we would call very unsustainable. A lot of sugar, a lot of, salt, things like that, yes, on fast food. But the indication was a bit the opposite. So I realized that I was doing something wrong, which is I was working at the time with Oliver Wyman, so one of the largest strategy consulting firms. We had acquired in Boston a firm that was really thinking about the future, thinking from the future into the present. And suddenly I realized that all this knowledge about business was missing something, because sustainability was, according to this CEO pitch, was something that was to go around the business. And so I went in 2010, I went to Stockholm to acquire knowledge and to get a partnership with the Natural Step, which were the scientists that brought in, the knowledge, taught in a way, Sweden, and worked with a lot of their corporates about in society. So they taught all society in the schools how to define sustainability scientifically. So based on the thermodynamic laws and based later on social sciences, to really be the boundaries around the business. So a vision in which we don't have interpolated circles, but we have like nested circles around the business. The business is still at the core, we should not diverge from the idea that it is all about business and economic activity, but we need to play innovation within boundaries, social and environmental boundaries. And this is defined scientifically. So we started applying this knowledge in chemicals, in organic chemicals. We started applying this knowledge in wine. And we were very glad to see a wine player in Portugal, Esporão, to become considered the best, the 13th in 2020 most admired brand in wine in the world, which is quite amazing for a 50 million family business, right? And we worked in mobility, in transport infrastructure, and people were realizing with this knowledge that you need to think what is really sustainability, and then you need to look at all the chain and go back to upstream towards the extraction of raw materials, and to understand along all the value chain how sustainable the business is, because it's the value chain that is sustainable. So in a way, this connects entirely with this concept of stakeholders and collaboration and open innovation, because we need to guide the business to do much more with much less. We need to do differently. So what John told us today is exactly the image of this type of application.
Thank you, Antonio. In fact, I think is a great step in this area of sustainability, in fact. And John, thanking again your great presentation. I think I know quite well some of these products. And I think sometimes we discuss a lot. When you do research, as in my case, and we connect with industry, and we try to transform every day this science to the products. I think you, Emrys, had a great role here helping us to do that. Can you maybe, because we have startups today here attending to the conference, can you give us your idea? How can we transform this science, moving to the business models until the implementation, a successful implementation? Can you give us some advices and how can work this implementation from the science?
Great, Manuel. I will do. I'll try that. Appreciate being here with you, and thank you for facilitating. And I want to build on David and Antonio's comments, and then answer your question regarding how to make the science a reality. David's point on conflict of interest, I think, is spot on. It's sort of, I can relate a lot to how David was describing the journey, right? Having raised over $2 billion and having prioritized at times targets, design of experiment to deliver certain results in service of, how do you get that next fundraising, because the company has to stay alive, right? And it's sometimes we talk sustainability, and I always remind people, especially as entrepreneurs starting companies, if the company you're building isn't sustainable, there's no way in hell you're going to help our planet be sustainable. So you have to live another day to make the reality of the science actually make a difference. And I think, to build on David's point, it is a fine line. And the fine line I see is, it is lonely to actually try to innovate and deliver a breakthrough solution in science. Very, very lonely. And it's very lonely because most of the time you're failing. And when you're failing, there is this point you can get to of self-doubt. And so how do you deal with that, right? Well, you have to have a lot of thick skin, and you have to actually have a tremendous amount of confidence and belief in what you're doing. Now, to me, the reference David made to the Theranos case, it is a very dangerous line, because self-confidence can go over the line. And I'm not suggesting there was over the line or not. I'm just talking about, like, you have to keep centered in the reality. And whenever I say that, you know, I almost have a visceral reaction, because whose reality? Like, when you're doing science and you actually think you're inventing something and it's going to do something different than's been done before, and somebody tells you, well, you know, I'm not sure that's real. Like, if you're true and committed to what you're doing, you're going to have all the reasons in the world why what you're doing can be real, and why everybody on the sidelines saying, well, that's just not reality, they just don't know, right? And so what is that? Is that over the line? Is that confidence? Or is that just a human tactic to deal with the self-doubt that comes from a tremendous amount of failure when you're creating innovation? This is why when the group asked me to be part of the award here, you know, I told them, look, I'm happy to contribute some dollars, but the biggest thing I can contribute is actually my time and the ability to encourage somebody and help them think about how to actually innovate, how to get products to market. I think Antonio's point on the value chain is spot on. Look, I actually think what you said, Antonio, really brought me back to thinking about open innovation in a different way. I actually don't think you can scale and impact a real sustainable solution without open innovation. And the reason why is the value chain. The value chains for products are very complex, and there's a lot of established biases, or to use David's point, a lot of conflict of interest around the chain. There's a lot of people that have invested a lot of capital in the value chain working a certain way. So if they're not innovating with you and you're not working together with them, it's going to be very hard to take a new idea and really have big impact. Which I want to end then with your question, Manuela. So how do you make all this real? How do you make the science real? Look, I have one simple piece of advice for all the folks in the audience that are innovating or trying to scale and develop new science. I would really suggest spending a lot of time in thinking about the end. Here's what I mean. If you're developing something, you're developing it for something, some market, some product, some end thing. I would do a lot of time visualizing that end thing. What is that product? What's it going to do? Who's it going to serve? How's it going to work? How's it going to be produced? What purity level do you need? The more you can visualize and the clearer you can be about the end product, the more effective you can be, and actually the better choices you could make in the cycle of innovation. So that's what I would say is, like, especially for a lot of the folks that are earlier stage developing an idea, spend a lot of time thinking about what's the end state of that idea. What's it going to do and where? And then from that, come all the way back to, okay, what are the choices I'm making? What technologies am I choosing? How well does it have to perform? At what cost must I deliver it at? And then you answer the really tough question, what do I think my probability is of doing that? And how do I de-risk my path to achieving that?
Yeah, great advice. I think, and do you think, in fact, that this is applicable to different types of industry? It's a general guidance, or do you think, because when you think about different industries, the challenges are really different, but do you think this approach can be applied generally, or you think that each industry can have different approaches?
I think the fundamentals, look, I've applied open innovation and collaboration in everything from oil trading to the development of the internet in the first, and that sounded like an Al Gore statement. I didn't really mean development of the internet. I meant scaling of technology for the internet. And now obviously synthetic biology and the science of bioengineering. And in all of them, I think these themes of starting with the end in mind, understanding the value chain, partnering and open innovating, and then really focus on fast failure to learn, and really focus on learning cycles as your key metric, right? I think all of those principles have applied regardless of the end market, because I'm not talking about a scientific choice. I'm talking about a way of thinking and a way of innovating.
Yeah, that's thank you for your advice. David, what are some of the criteria that, in your opinion, define the open innovation interaction between large corporates and other communities?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I've been involved on both sides. I worked 16 years for Bayer Covestro, one of the largest chemical companies in the world. Most recently, I ran about 7 different businesses, which were on the more high-tech side. Our global healthcare business for healthcare industry, electric vehicle battery packs, that kind of thing. And of course, while we're doing that, we're very strongly interacting with startups and with universities and with the communities in which whatever innovation we're working on is going to have to exist in, right? Thinking like what John just said, with the end in mind, right? And I think when I look at those kind of partnerships now, as from the startup perspective, we also look for larger partners, whether they're strategic investors or strategic partners. And from the corporate side, it was always the perspective, who really can walk the talk. And from the startup side, it's very much like, are these people honest? There is a power imbalance here that is inevitable. And how can I keep this power imbalance? How can we manage this elephant in the room, which is the power imbalance, right? So when I'm looking at, or from a criteria for good open innovation, it's really, do these communities, whether it's the corporate or the academic community or the startup, do they understand what the elephant in the room is? Are they all people who want to walk the walk at the end of the day? Do they all have skin in the game? And are they aware how they're going to share reward going out? I think one of the important things is, and I know probably many people will disagree with me on this, but I actually don't think the idea is so important. I think execution is like 99.99999% of everything. And the original idea is kind of, well, ideas are just not that worth much. But we live in an environment where our patent system, our IP system protects ideas and doesn't value execution that much. Everything about innovation is all about the execution, right? You can't have innovation, literally, it does not exist without the execution side, right? And that comes from being able to walk the walk and not just PowerPoint.
Yeah, thank you, David. And Tony, I think this is, as we were talking about startups, and we have several startups attending today again. I think we have been discussing together something about the role of startups in this sustainable development. Can you give me your opinion? Do you think, what is the role of the startups? How can we engage them? How can we boost them? And what would be the sustainable development without the startups?
So you are speaking, I had some difficulty, Manuela, in listening to you. I would, but if I understand the role of startups, right?
Yes.
First of all, let me comment, because this idea of dialogues is very good that John is bringing. Let me stress a lot for this audience, this concept of end game. What is, have a concept, have a vision. We at the Natural Step normally say, start with the end in mind, and then backcast to the present. So put your feet in the future, look, try to see what is a powerful business and the sustainable business, is the two things, the concentric circles, and then backcast to the present and try to see all the difficulties that you have to overcome, but from the future to the present. And then a second comment is clearly to David about the needs in the chain, because it is a chain. We need to have genuine people. We need to have really committed people, and not people in folklore collaboration, and not in pure greenwashing. And so we, in the execution thing, I'm sure that, I imagine that John is going to comment about that, because it's absolutely key to understand that end of the day, without execution, nothing like putting the feet in the future will go away, yes? Or a perspective on the entire chain with sustainability, a scientific vision of sustainability. Nothing will stay if we don't have execution, okay? And so that is very important, and maybe even John can expand more. About startups, I would say that, first of all businesses should have and should keep having a perspective, an agile perspective, and the perspective of the future of trying to do things differently, as we see with John. Or even we see at your former business, David Covestro, that announced that they are going to be fully circular. So we need to make sure that, first of all, we have people that want not to keep running only for efficiency, but they want to be adaptive and seek for a better future. Yes, a better future for humanity, and a better business even. And so not to be resting on what they did in the past. This is the in essence what startups that survive, because many fail, do amazingly, yes, which is having a different perspective, not fearing the risk. We heard already, not to have fear. That is very, very important. I remember one of our clients saying, the wine company, we failed miserably in attempting to create vineyards based on biological vineyards. And that was very important to fail. And then we came back, we went to understand from other experiences, what were we doing wrong? And we started again, and we had to rest the soil for some time, and then apply the real knowledge to make things happen. And so all this learning process, try and error, it's a type of mindset that big businesses need to keep with startups. Then we have this thing of connecting the big businesses with startups around, because if we don't have ventures around on open innovation, the business will stay very standalone and will tend to be fat, and keeping fat in terms of mindsets, and keeping much more on efficiency and cost cutting, and keeping running the business. So having a ecosystem around is very important, and collaboration. Processes of collaboration with startups, collabs, etc., are extremely important to solve new challenges with sustainability.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you. John, during your presentation, you have been talking about to innovate, to help consumer embrace sustainability. And this process of open innovation, what is the role of consumer? Do you think that you can use consumer to guide us to the innovation, or the consumer are just end users of this innovation?
I think it's a little bit of both, Manuela. So here's how I look at it. And this gets back to one of David's points, right? I mean, innovation without impact is ideation, right? And ideas are pretty cheap, right? There's a lot of ideas. Having them adopted and have impact, that's innovation. And for that to happen, you need consumers to actually want it, right? It's the old saying, the dog food is only good if the dogs want to eat it. So, in this case, the product and the innovation and the science is only good if it actually does something meaningful for the consumer. Why that matters is really simple. Why it matters is because without a consumer consuming something better that actually does well for our planet, we have no hope, and there is no planet B. I think David started off sharing a feeling that I share, which is, you know, I don't believe there's much we're going to do for our planet that's going to make my life different. But I actually believe that without us making a difference for our planet, our children, and definitely their children, have no hope. So for me, the consumer is where it starts. And that's why the use of products and exciting the consumer. The other thing that's important about the consumer is this. Like, I don't know of anything that really works. I mean, we just had a recent experience with electric cars. We can go to solar. We can go to a lot of different technologies. And until they hit critical mass, until they go mainstream, it's hard to actually make a real difference. And I have this notion, like the way I think is the consumer has to find it sexy to really want it. And so when I think about, like, I want to excite the consumer in the beauty industry, it's because they connect beauty with sexy. And if they want the products, they can start to understand and discover innovation and sustainability through that vehicle of seeing something that's interesting or sexy that they want to play a role in. So that's on that part of it. Look, the other part of consumer that matters a lot is that big companies, going back to your point about collaborating with big companies listen more to what the consumer does, because the consumer choice is what drives a big company's results. And so influencing the consumer, or said differently, setting a standard for the consumer, that the consumer demands then a higher level or a better level of performance from companies, is actually, in my experience, the best way to change a big company's behavior. And by other companies changing their behavior, it actually drives more demand for sustainable solutions, which makes our planet better. And that whole circle of innovation is actually, for me, deeply important. It's like, I can have the greatest ingredient in the world, and I can have, and it can be sustainable and make a huge difference for our planet, and I can sell it through one of our brands to the consumer. My impact, my footprint is actually quite small, because it's only the impact of my brand to that consumer. But if I can have 3,500 brands around the world, all in a single category, using my ingredient, talking to the consumer, that is how we can make a significant impact. That's how we're saving 3 million trucks a year. It's not because our brands are using the product. It's because our brands are so good that the consumer wants more products like that. And the consumer is demanding companies like Estee Lauder and L'Oreal and Amore Pacific and Shiseido to actually use the kind of ingredients we have in our products in their products. So that's what I see. The consumer really plays two roles. One is a demand driver, and the other is a use. Demand driver to raise expectations and the bar for all companies, and use because it's only when they use that the planet becomes better.
Yes, that's true. I agree with you. I think, David, just a last question, because time is short now. What would you like to see differently in the interaction between communities in open and sustainability innovation?
I think, you know, there's so many exciting business models that I can't imagine, and I think I have a reasonably good imagination, but I'm really sure there's stuff beyond the horizon in terms of business model innovation that I really can't even imagine. And I kind of feel that we're driving startups down a very kind of cookie cutter approach to building value. You know, you have an idea, you prototype it, you use some kind of iterative lean approach, you get traction, you show nice graphs which show great traction, then you get another round of fundraising, then you show more traction, and hopefully you've got more than just one product. I'm being a little bit sarcastic there, but I think we're missing real opportunities for totally crazy business model innovation, how to build startups, how to build organizations in a way. And right now, I don't see very much of that. I see, if you look at Silicon Valley, if you look at the European innovation scene, what's happening here in China, these are all pretty standard playbooks, right? You have somebody who has a pretty good playbook, like blitz scaling, for instance, and everybody jumps on it. And I'd love to see a little bit more reward for imaginative business models. And I think that comes a little bit through to where capital comes from. And I think especially for deep tech startups, and what we're talking about a lot is deep tech startups here. Sustainability, I think, is a lot about deep tech. The sources of funding, the sources of capital are fairly challenging. And those sources of capital that are there are quite conservative. So BCG had a fantastic report on this, I think last year, World of Tomorrow, and they also identify sources of funding for deep tech as a major challenge, and business model flexibility is part of that. So yeah, that's two things that I'd love to see different. And it would be very exciting to see what people could achieve if they really could let go.
Yeah, let's see. And I think we all can collaborate for that. I think we have 4 minutes. We have 2 questions from the audience. So I think it's important to both for John. And the first for John is saying, bank you in the United States and looking at Portugal. In your opinion, what is the greatest liability of our ID to market to brands process?
I think I understood the question. So let me play it back. So the question is, from the US looking at Portugal, what's the attractiveness of investment in Portugal, right? What's the benefit? Is that right?
Yeah. In fact, what is the greatest liability of in Portugal ID to go to the markets and to create brands? What do you think are the main debilities?
So the biggest, so make sure I get that right. So what are the biggest barriers in Portugal to go to market? Is that correct? Did I hear that?
I would say,
look,
yes.
I think the biggest barrier in Portugal is the mindset of the Portuguese entrepreneur. I think the Portuguese entrepreneur thinks small. I think the Portuguese entrepreneur does not understand risk for the most part, and not the fault of the Portuguese entrepreneur. I just don't think there's good risk capital and good pools of capital in Portugal to reinforce entrepreneurialism, especially in deep tech, as David highlighted. I mean, it's bad enough in Portugal taking risk on opening a store, never mind putting something into deep tech that you don't even understand what it's going to do, right? So, and I also want to be fair and say those things are getting better, but those are what I think are the biggest barriers. I don't think about the local market as a barrier, because it's actually a very interesting market, very focused on a couple of cities that for experimenting, for actually getting something to market to test response, it's good enough. I would never start a company in Portugal because I thought that the Portuguese market was going to build a great company to have huge impact, which gets back to the point of starting with the end in mind. I'd want to be clear, like, what is the end market? What's the size of it more at a global scale? And what are the cities that I want to win in, rather than it's Portugal? But I think mindset is where I would leave that question.
Great answer. And the second question is also for John, is could Emirates help startups with their existing advanced technology to overcome hurdles or barriers?
It's a complicated question, because the answer is it depends, right? Yeah. I want to, we're doing it now with brands, right? We're partnering and creating brands that are actually part owned by the partner, because I think open innovation in the consumer side and developing new models to reach the consumer are really important. On the technology side, I think the same thing. Like, what do I look for in technology? I look for interesting targets where we have something that can help scale a target that would make the idea executable. Back to David's point about execution is the game. Ideas are really cheap. They are cheap. However, if there's a good idea out there, that the barrier to really doing well is scale and execution, that's something we can help with. And that's something I would look for partners in. So I think those are the two things. I look for ways to reach the consumer, and smart new ways are things I'm looking to partner with. And then secondly, very interesting new deep science where the target, whether it's a molecule, whether it's a technology, especially around machine learning, I'm looking for interesting innovation. And why would I say that to an audience like this? Because I think it's in small groups that the best ideas originally start. And the hard part, again, is forming the capital to take that interesting new idea and develop it and scale it. And that's where I think we can be helpful for some of the innovators in the room.
Thank you. I think we need to close the session. So I think thank you so much for your.
We can. Sorry, Professor. We can. I think. Yeah. I think we
Yeah.
still have here a question or two.
Sorry.
Yes, please.
Moment,
We can.
yeah,
We can.
new.
We still have time for those. I think we can
Okay.
address them. Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
So where is, because I cannot just see two. Can you help me, Hugo?
Where is
I
it?
just can. Maybe you can help me, because
Yes. Sorry.
just two. I have more questions. And
Yes,
you can proceed.
but let me find, because they are here in the chat, but only on my private chat. You can go with your questions, and I'll send you the ones that are missing.
Okay, so I have a question now, was Antonio. It's about how can we guarantee co-creation with the robust knowledge to sustainable development? Do you think is it possible to guarantee this co-creation? And especially, I don't know if you can join at the same time, how to maintain the leadership when we promote this co-creation and networking?
So about leadership, I believe that both John and David will fully agree with me that without leadership, possibly the thing will not kick off. Okay, and so without someone that maybe has had some awakening, and as really, I normally say, a guy who's a leader, whose eyes shine, because without that, I think we don't have a starting point for any co-creation, any process of serious work. I remember, let me have here a bit in confidence, story of my Italian colleagues from the Natural Step, about to start a project with a top fashion brand in Italy. And they were saying, you know, we are now convinced that that you are the right guys, and we are going to work strategically with you because you have all these system of equations. And they said, we're really a top brand in Italy and around the world. And the answer from my colleagues, which was humble, not arrogant, was, we are not yet convinced, because we are too small, and we can only have an impact, and to start, you know, co-creation, start working a multi-stakeholder platform out of the work with you, if we are really convinced that you are going to put this to work. Okay, and so really promoting leaders, having a leader, it's absolutely key. I'm absolutely sure John will not say this because maybe it's too humble to say that, but I'm sure that someone like John makes all the difference at a company like that one, despite, you know, having a size in the dimension. It makes, you know, some people like John make a lot of difference. People like David, a genuine guy. David, you were presented to me once as a corporate rebel. So it's this type of people, first of all. Second is, we need to bring, and the point now is, we need to bring a very robust knowledge that comes from science to really guide things. Otherwise, people get completely lost on the way. First attempts, like, you know, moving into renewables, that is easy to do, you know, to seek. But as we go along the process, and normally people don't have an end in mind. Let's be honest. They are, people that are doing steps. They need to create, the end in mind, a clear point of view about the future to then backcast and then to incorporate all their work to the present and to make it much more significant. So these having a scientifically robust process is absolutely key. And so that guidance, not purely technology. I think that more and more knowledge of boundaries and how to work and how to have a point of view, a manifesto of the future within boundaries, which can be regenerative. We can open the boundaries, but we need to have a strong point of view in which science is backing us. And so this is a bit the process. And then we need to share this knowledge. Like the Swedish, 30 years ago, they started spreading the knowledge and teaching the parents of Greta. It's not Greta that learned, it was the parents of Greta, I'm sure. And so it became, started becoming, clear that some countries were more exposed to these ideas. And then we need to go into co-creation. Let me have a word here, Manuela, some in confidence here between us, that we are starting something that we need the support and the advisory of people like David and John, which is the creation of a hub in Insure Hub, innovation in sustainability and regeneration in Porto, in which Planeteers, that is aimed to bring the deep knowledge, spread through society, spread through business, help businesses and startups and municipalities to evolve. We are settling this in Porto at Católica. So all Planeteers had a big inspirational event in Lisbon. We are starting the co-creation and the transformation in Porto. And for international cooperation, of course, with people like John and David.
Okay, thank you. I think we have another question now. Yes. One is also for John. The US military is one of the biggest CO2 emitters in the world. Do you have biofuel solutions for them, Mr. Mello?
We have been working with the US military for quite some time. The DARPA arm of government, which is a place that invests in advanced research in the US, has been a great collaborator of ours and a great partner of ours for quite some time. And we do have a jet fuel technology that we work closely with the military on. And the one that's most interesting in the short term, because you have to prioritize. You have to prioritize, like, what problems can you fix now? And one technology that's really interesting is actually rocket fuel for special missions. And the reason why, again, renewable rocket fuel is really interesting is we could make molecules from biochemistry that are much more interesting, that enable missions to fly longer, enable the engines to operate better, and do it in a way that's sustainable. And I think that's, again, definitely in the military's mind. And more importantly, it's in the government's mind. I've spent a lot of time with government in the US because they always ask the question, like, how do we make this sustainability? How do we, how do we address climate change? And I always start with exactly what this panelist or what this conference person asked, which is, well, biggest place government can make a difference is called consumption. The government consumes a lot of products. And if the government decides to buy sustainably sourced products and technology, that in itself will be a great way to move consumption to a lower carbon solution. So agree with the question and definitely working with the US military on that.
Okay, thank you,
Awesome.
John. I think
Thank
at the moment we need to close. I think we are ready to go to the next moment, the Amherst Innovation Big Impact Award ceremony. And I want to thank John, Antonio, David. It was a great contribution. I think audience was learning a lot to give the next steps of sustainability. So thank you so much. I would invite you to join us to this ceremony and listen what was the winners. So it would be also a great opportunity also to then follow these startups. And now it's time for Hugo to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very
everyone.
much. Thank you very much, David, Antonio, and also John, for the discussion.